Are you a scaling SaaS founder?
Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those who don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Hey, welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where every time a SaaS company starts, a founder gets his wings. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. We're here live at SaaStr this week, the biggest event in SaaSlandia, 16,000 people, all talking strategy, pitching, solutions, raising money, and doing deals. It's always a great event, and I love the venue being outside. Some great presentations here about what's going on today, plus some predictions for 2025 and beyond. Today we'll talk about the top 3 B2B SaaS trends for 2024 now. The first one is increased AI integration. AI is becoming a key value driver in B2B SaaS. We've seen more and more SaaS companies integrating AI capabilities into their products and services. It includes AI for managing financial metrics, enhancing customer experiences, and really just improving overall product functionality. Yeah, I think it'll definitely remain hot. It's not going anywhere, but it seems to me over the last year, companies are looking for use cases where they can apply AI versus finding actual needs and solving them with AI. It's a solution in search of a problem instead of finding problems and then looking for a solution for that. So maybe that's starting to shift a little bit, maybe. And the second is a focus on vertical SaaS. And there's a growing trend toward vertical SaaS solutions that cater to specific industries or niches. Companies are developing specialized services to meet unique customer needs in particular business verticals like Viva for the pharmaceutical industry. And if you've been around for a while, I love vertical SaaS, and the industry focus has so much value. So if you're vertical, you're definitely on the right track. The third is emphasis on cybersecurity. With the increasing number of high-profile data breaches and growing concerns about AI-enabled cyber attacks, cybersecurity has become more critical than ever for SaaS companies. Last week we had Simon Khan from Cyber Matters, and you can expect to see greater focus on implementing robust security measures and ensuring compliance with data protection regulations. That's just getting more and more complex. A couple of other observations are more low-code, no-code solutions, and that is bringing applications to market faster than ever before. Sometimes complete apps, and sometimes prototypes or MVPs. There's good and bad to that, but certainly lets founders quickly validate, iterate, and get to market. The big winners are scrappy startups, and it's definitely a threat to some older solutions who are maybe slow to react. And a final one is that the capital markets are way stronger than we've been led to believe in the media. Money hasn't dried up. It's just smarter. Growth at all costs is out. Capital efficient growth is in. Cash flow positivity and profits are good. Who knew? Profits, good thing. There's plenty of capital to be invested. Deals are being done, but they're smarter deals. 2021, due diligence was done with a magic wand, a top hat, and an Etch-a-Sketch. But the pendulum has swung back the other direction where it's tougher today. The buy box is tighter and valuations are a lot more reasonable. None of that's really a bad thing in my opinion. So there you go. That's my take on SaaStr this year. Next time we'll talk about the top 3 trends for 2025. In the meantime, I'd love to hear from you. What are your takeaways? What are the memorable presentations? What are you hearing? What are you seeing in the marketplace for either what's going on today or predictions tomorrow? Drop it in the comments below. Our founder on Tuesday was Simon Khan, founder and chief consultant at Cyber Matters. We tapped into his crazy great combo of business and tech experience. Great insights from a very unique perspective, especially about cybersecurity. And our expert guest last week was Brenda Viola, where we covered burnout, reclaiming joy in work, and she put me in the hot seat a little bit in a little twist, talking about culture and communication questions. If you missed either of those episodes, go back and give them a listen. My guest today is Dr. Chris Fuzie, owner and CEO of CMF Leadership Consulting, with over 18 years of experience in leadership development across private, public, and military sectors. He is the author of Liminal Space, Reshaping Leadership, and Followership. Chris holds advanced degrees in organizational leadership and brings a wealth of expertise, including his distinguished 28-year career in law enforcement. Get ready to dive into behavior-based leadership strategies from a true expert in organizational excellence, Dr. Chris Fuzie. Hey Chris, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I'm really looking forward to this.
Well, let's talk about the concept of leadership and followership. Explain that to me.
Okay. So this idea that people are, we hear about leadership all the time,
Yeah.
right? And so there's thousands and millions of articles written on leadership, and it's broken down into so many parts. But you can't be a leader without a follower. And there's this concept that the leadership is actually a process. It's not a person. It's not a thing. It's a process. And so, but then when you start looking at the behaviors of leadership, and you start looking at positions that are like a middle manager, or like where I'm at, I'm right underneath an elected official. I have to lead the 160 some odd people in the organization, but I also have to follow what the elected official wants and what he says, and his character, his persona is out there for the public. So I have to lead these people and follow what the elected official wants. So then you start looking at all sorts of organizations, and there's a bunch of people in the same position where they have to lead and follow simultaneously.
Right.
And that's where this liminal, I call it liminal space. That's, from the book. I call it liminal space because you're in this space where you do have to do both leading and following. And that's where this comes from. And it's just a different way of looking at the leadership process.
It is. And that is the book, Liminal Space, Reshaping Leadership and Followership.
Yeah, I got it right here. And it was fun to write because it's a lot of concepts that people haven't been thinking about. And I started talking to a few people about it like 4 or 5 years ago. And I was like, yeah, that's a great idea, but how do we get it? So I spent the last few years like refining how it comes out. And that's what the book is about.
And the book really challenges the traditional parent-child relationship or superior-subordinate.
Right.
How does your book change that thinking?
So one of the things I do in the book is it's all a fictional company, right? And it has this fictional consultant who comes in and does this. And basically, these are things that I've done myself. And so at one point, the consultant gets up and she goes, well, how much is the value? She shows a picture of a quarter, and she shows the front side, and then she shows the back side of this quarter. And she says, okay, so what's the value of the front side? And people are looking, they're not really sure what to take of it. So it's like the two sides of a coin. And then finally, she shows the backside. She goes, well, this has to be less because it's the backside. It's the tail side of a coin. So it has to be less than the front side. So how do we determine? And then finally somebody says, it's all just a quarter. And so she asks him, so one side isn't more important or isn't more valuable than the other? They said, no, because you need both sides to spend the quarter. So it's the function of the quarter. And so I've done that with people several times. And then you look at the function of the quarter, just like the function of leadership and followership. And you can't have one without the other. And so they both are required to accomplish the goals of the organization or meet the needs of the situation in the leadership process.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that challenges people as they start thinking about it. They go, wait a minute. You have to have both sides, the two sides of the same coin. You'll see that a lot now in some of the literature. It's people talking about two sides of the same coin. And that's really what we're talking about. Another concept that I use to challenge is I use GPT. Sorry. So I got on there and I asked the question, what is it? Chat GPT. This is worldwide information access here, AI, and everybody's saying, "Woo, it's going to solve everything." And I asked it. I said, "Hey, what is the opposite of a leader?" And it says the opposite of a leader is a follower. And I actually put this right in the book, how it says it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, okay, so what is the definition of opposite? And it says, well, the opposite, and then it goes through this thing like in and out, up, down, fast, slow, etc. I said, and it gives a definition. I said, so if the definition of an opposite is to be different in characteristic and et cetera, I just gave it its words back. And it says, well, no, and then it took like 15 or 20 seconds. I'm sitting there going, "Oh man, what happened now? Did I mess it up or what?" And then it started one word at a time, and it said, "Thank you for clarifying." In that context, in the leadership context, followers are not necessarily opposite of leaders, and then it ends up saying that they're actually complementary and they're on the same goals and the same stuff. I put that right into the book, word for word, what it came out of ChatGPT. And so here you have this supercomputer that mimics what people think, really. And most people think, and I've done that with people in meetings. Okay, what's the opposite of up, down, in, out,
Right.
fast, slow? And then I say leader, and people say follower. Okay, let's think about that. Is it really the opposite? So those are some of the challenges there, and just to get people thinking about it, and then talking about people as a liminal leader. It's too hard to say leader follower because they're both, but so I just say liminal leader, getting people to think about their own position and that they lead and follow at the same time, especially people who are in the middle management. That, well, I'm a manager. I have my leadership team. I lead my group and I'm on the leadership team. Okay, but who are you following?
Right.
Well, the CEO and the board and all these other people is okay. So you're leading and following simultaneously. Well, no, not at the same time. I don't do it at the same time. Well, wait a minute. When you write policy, are you writing that policy that matches law? What the board is saying? What you are following, and so you have to write that, and then they start thinking about it
Right.
and realizing that that's what's happening. So that's kind of what the book goes through. It walks people through those things. It's kind of it was fun to create that because I've already done it in groups with people. So to put it in this, fictional thing was kind of fun.
Yeah. And so that's really what you mean by liminal space or liminal leader is just being both of those at the same time. Did I get that right?
Correct. Yes. And the fact of being both at the same time, now it's not about the position. It's not about whether you're leading or following. Now it transitions to, are you doing the correct behavior? Are you doing what's necessary to do that? So that's the cool. That's why the other half of the book is about reshaping leadership and followership. Because once it's not about the position and it's about the behavior, now we got to focus on behaviors.
So what are those behaviors? So you talk about the concept of the tessellation of behavior, which is how they
Right.
fit together. How does that
Yeah.
work in business?
So let's talk about the behaviors first. So when I was doing consulting and teaching throughout the country, we would ask people for two traits or behaviors of great leaders. We'd have this discussion about leadership, and I'd ask them for two traits or behaviors. And like every good consultant does, you write it on a piece of paper and you stick it on the wall, and and then you have this list on the wall. Well, what I do is I kept track of those lists, and I've done this over 10 years. And and then after having that discussion, then we go into something else, and then we get into followership. And when we're talking about followership, this is in 2007, 2008, during a time that nobody was really thinking about followership except maybe Irish Aleph and a couple of those people. And so we started talking about followership, and I'd ask him, I said, okay, look at these words you wrote. How many of these behaviors or traits do you not want in your followers? And people, they look at it and they hadn't thought about it that way. You
Yeah.
see the light bulbs going off, and so out of that group, I created I took um, all those lists that people said, yeah, we want the same things out of our leaders and followers, and I created a list of 86 behaviors that people said they want out of their leaders. I'll just read a couple of them here. I'm just going to go down one column here. Appreciative, builds relationships, clear, communicator, courageous, emotional control, empathetic, empowering, learner, motivator, grit, humble, mature, foster potential, inspiring. So you think of all these things, all these words, and there's 86 of them that people have said they want in both their leaders and their followers. So that's what I use in the book, but it doesn't have to be just those. It could be any kind of behavior, really. But these are the ones I know people said they want, and I know they've identified as great leader behaviors,
Right.
and that they want those in their followers. So that's why I use this group of behaviors. So how this works with the tessellations is, think of a company that maybe you're familiar with or you work with, and what their mission statement is, right? How many mission statements have you seen that are like paragraphs long,
Way too many.
where that nobody can remember,
Right.
and and you ask them to recite it, and they go, "Our mission is," and then it trails off. They get that far. That's about it, right? But if you had three behaviors, three words that that you had to remember, those are your overarching goals, right? So what I've done is I've taken the three main shapes that are a regular tessellation: a triangle, a square, and a hexagon. These are things that are regular tessellation. You can put these shapes together as long as they're the same size, not one super big and one little. You can take these things and make a complete pattern that covers an entire surface. And this is not just done mathematically. This is part of math, it's part of geometry. But think about a honeycomb. Think about a turtle shell.
Yeah.
Right? A pineapple skin. These are all tessellations. These are all repeating patterns. If you look at tile work, the floor of your bathroom is probably a tessellation. It's probably tile work,
Sure.
right? So you think about these kind of things that. So what I've done is I've taken each shape, a triangle, a square, and a hexagon, and applied them to the three main functions of almost any company, which is the strategic part, which is the C-suite, the overarching beliefs of the organization, right? And then you have the square, which is the tactical portion of an organization, which these are the defining values, right? And then you have the six core, which is the hexagon, which is the operational part of an organization. And so if with the three core, let's start at the top, tessellation. Let's say you use the word integrity, humility, and forward looking, right? Those three things, can you remember those?
Yes.
Those are pretty easy,
Yes.
right? You don't need a mission statement. Our job is to do whatever and have integrity, and I forget the three. Have integrity, forward looking, and honest,
Right.
right? So So those are the 3 overarching beliefs that you want in your entire company. Everybody should know that. Everybody should understand these are our overarching beliefs. And it doesn't have to be those 3. It could be any
Sure.
ones. And then you go to the 4 core, which is the square. And the 4 core behaviors, these are tactical. This is the tactical part of the organization. If you look at it through a strategic management lens, these are the tactical parts where you're trying to not just take those strategic overarching beliefs, you're defining the values. So if you think about this traditional organization, they have a vision, mission, values, right?
Right.
And so these are the values part of the organization. So what are those values? You pick any of the 4 again, right? So yeah, I'm not going to pick 4 because I'll just forget them. But you pick 4 and you put those 4 in your defining values. So now you have 7 different things that tell you how you should behave. It's not just about what does it feel like. It's not just about we think this is a good idea. These are now behaviors that we say we value.
Right.
And then you get into the 6 core, the operational part, and that's where you start looking at, okay, so now maybe we want people to be risk takers. Do we not want people to be risk takers? What do we want? Do we want them to be learning? Is this a learning organization? And so now you look at these are standards of operation. And these are the ones for the part of the organization where your warehouse workers, your production line workers, your frontline workers, and you have 6 things there. Now, if that those production line workers only remember those 6 things, I'm good with that.
Right.
Because those are 6 behaviors that not only can I define, if you can define it, you can teach it. If you can teach it, you can measure it. If you can measure it, you can evaluate it. And then you can adjust the definition or the word itself. Is this what we want? So these not only become behaviors that you want in your organization and for people to remember, but these become the things that they actually are evaluated on. And does it fit with the organization? If we say somebody is a learning, this is a learning organization, we want people to learn, and somebody says, I don't want to go to training. Okay, how does that fit with our learning organization?
Right.
Are you want to just stay in the same spot for 30 years? I don't know. I don't know that I would want somebody like that. I mean, if we're saying that's one of our values, that's one of our behaviors. So that's kind of how this fits together. And then you could take those behaviors and those shapes, and if you ever look at any kind of pattern, you could take triangles, squares, and hexagons and make some really incredible shapes with those. Really incredible art.
Yes.
Even tessellation in art. It's pretty cool because you can see it everywhere. Once you start looking at and you get this idea of tessellations in your head, then it's kind of like, you ever play the game Slug Bug?
Sure.
Yeah, you drive around and you see a Volkswagen,
Yeah,
and
you
you
start seeing
slug
them
the other
everywhere.
person, right? Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Then you're seeing them everywhere. It's the same concept. You start paying attention to it, and the theory is that people will practice what they pay attention
Yes.
to. And so if you're paying attention to something, you're going to practice that. So if you're paying attention to these words, these values, these behaviors, then you're gonna actually notice when that happens in your organization. So that's how this works. It's a little out there for a lot of people because you start talking about math and geometry, and instantly, I mean, there's some people that just clicks them right off, and they're, no, don't give me math, I don't want it, But then it actually works, and when you see that it's not only is it everywhere in nature, it's everywhere in art, it's in architecture, it's in a lot of the things we do. So we're using it all the time. So why not use those same concepts in how we behave?
Right. That makes a
Yeah,
lot of sense is to have those, and that's there's so many values within the organization because when you have those core values and you have the purpose and the vision and values and mission, then it makes it a lot easier for people to make decisions, especially when they only have to remember
right,
3 or 4 things. You know, this is
correct,
these are the core values that we're paying attention to. This is how I'm measured. This is what matters. And so this decision is really easy because it fits that. And so they're able to do that, or
right,
even in the hiring process. You know, if one of those is
right,
learning, being able to ask a question in the hiring process, you know, if learning is a value, what's the last course you paid for yourself? And if they go, I don't know, I've never done
right,
that, maybe they're not a fit. You know, maybe, you
right,
know, what is
exactly,
it about that that makes them, you know, that, you know, they're going to be the best candidate that because they embody those values. If they're really values in the organization,
right,
I think that's real important is they have to be real, not
yeah,
just aspirational. Like, yeah, we want to learn, but we don't pay for any training for anybody. There's a
yeah,
misalignment there. But when you
right,
can use that for
right,
hiring, for promotion, for evaluation, moving people out the
evaluations,
door.
right,
I mean, it should be
right,
something that is throughout the organization because it's real, it's living, it's part of your DNA.
right. And then if you think about your succession plan,
Yes,
and these are things built into your succession planning. And if you know that from the very time somebody starts, the very first day they walk in the door as a brand new employee, and they know that these are the things that they have to learn and apply, and oh my gosh, that makes succession planning so much easier also.
right. They don't have to
And who's
guess.
who's yeah, yeah, it's kind of cool, and that's why I started looking at this with that kind of lens, and it just kind of everything started to open up a little bit. My actual idea of what it means to be a leader and a follower changed, because it's not so much about. I would always think about the title, the role, that kind of stuff, and what is the behaviors that fit those titles, and it's gotten rid of that now
Yeah,
for me anyway. And it's like I don't think about it. If I have like where I'm working right now, I have a chief deputy DA, right? Well, if that chief deputy DA is not acting like a chief deputy DA, uh, we got to do something with that,
right.
you know. And so how do we do that, And so I start bringing in some of these behaviors. Well, and then when you talk about behavior, you're not talking about the person, you're talking about what they did. And so you're separating that behavior from the person, and now it's non-threatening also. So tell me about why this happened. I expect I'll stick with learning because I expect people to want to go to training and do learning.
Sure.
But here you haven't been to training or learning for 3 years. What's going on with that?
Yeah,
Now it's not, hey, how come you're not doing what you're supposed to do?
right.
And now it's talking about the behavior as its own entity, and it's easier for people to take and for people to recognize the gap in performance because you can every single one of these you can because it's a behavior you can relate it to performance.
Right.
So it makes even that easier. Oh yeah, it's pretty crazy how this and it's changed my thinking just in the last 4 or 5 years about this whole thing.
And that goes both ways because it's the significance of the behavior over the position. And so, you know, that goes, you know, one way where you may have a leader talking to their team about, matching the behavior, but it also goes the other way where the team can go to the leader and go, "Hey, how come you're not doing this? If this is a core value, then
Right,
then what's up with that?" And we're talking about
right.
with the behavior, not the person. You're not attacking the person, which I think is really important. Ready to dominate your market and skyrocket your revenue? Dive into Small Fish, Big Pond, building a world-class business that swims circles around competitors. This book is packed with powerful marketing and leadership insights guaranteed to transform your business and operate world class. Small Fish Big Pond delivers proven strategies to sharpen your marketing message, deliver unmatched value to your clients, and guide your prospects' buying journey to one inevitable conclusion: that your company is the only solution for them. Inside, you'll find step-by-step frameworks and time-tested growth principles to attract your ideal clients, convert them, and then turn them into your passionate brand ambassadors. Get your copy today, print, ebook, or audio at smallfishbigpond.com or on Amazon. Plus, remember, every book sale supports charity, so dive in and make a difference.
But focusing
Right.
on the behavior.
Yeah, and you just hit on a great point, because that's called congruence.
Yes.
And if their words and behaviors aren't matching, they're incongruent. Well, congruence is part of, I hate to say it, it's part of math also.
It is.
It's yeah. And so you have those shapes that you can turn them, you can twist them, you can flip them, you can do, but as long as they maintain the same shape, they're considered congruent.
Right.
So we say this is a behavior we want. As long as we maintain that shape or that behavior, then it's congruent. And you gave the great examples. You can question them. The team questions the leader, saying, "You're not being congruent. What's up with that?"
Right.
Which, yeah. It's kind of interesting how you start looking at all these things, and they do go back and forth. And as a liminal leader, you're even caught more in that. And I use the word caught because a lot of people don't realize that, oh, wait a minute, my team is watching me. They're watching me
Of
all
course
the
they
time.
are.
Yeah. And so, you think you're getting away, and then they go, oh, boss, you never do such and such,
Right.
Yeah. When I was a police lieutenant, my chief, he says, I want to have a meeting with everybody. I want to get feedback on me. And so he calls me in, and he says, so how do you think I'm doing? I said, well, Chief, I'll tell you what, don't ever play poker, because we would all win. and he goes, what do you mean? I said, well, when you get mad, you still smile, but the top of your ears turns red. And when you're upset about something, I mean, emotionally upset about something, you always do this frowning, but your mouth takes a different shape. And I started describing all these things that I've observed of him, right? And he goes, I didn't think people noticed. I didn't think people paid that much attention. I go, oh yeah, people pay that much attention. And when you're in a meeting and you bring something up and it's something that you don't like, your ears turn red. And so then what do we know to shut up. And so you think about all these things, and it's all about the behavior. And that's some of the stuff that some of the examples that I've used in the past for showing how the behavior is more important, until I got into this part. And it really is, and we pay attention to that. And the team will pay attention to that. And they'll recognize if you're not being congruent.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah.
Well, can you discuss the importance of service-oriented leadership, and maybe some examples of how to implement that into our businesses?
So, are you talking about servant leadership kind of stuff?
Yes.
Or okay, so a lot of people, I have a different idea of servant leadership and service to the team than others do. Some people think that service leadership is separate and distinct. I see it as part of what's called being a referent leader. A referent leader is somebody that you want to be like, you want to emulate, because you have respect for them, you trust them, you want to be like them, right? Well, in the service part, and even in servant leadership, the way you get to that referent um, place is that you do things for your people to help them out, to do things that they may need, give them something that they like. You sacrifice a little bit, which gives you a lot, right? As an example, I have candy on my desk, and I get different bags of different kind of candy and all chocolate, but the different kinds of stuff.
Sure.
And so some people like a certain type of candy bar. Some people like something else. The gal that works directly for me, my confidential assistant, she likes. Uh, um, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to
Yes,
say
go ahead.
the name brand or not.
Go ahead.
She likes, yeah, she likes those malted milk ball kind of
Sure.
things, and um, and so I make sure I get some of those. Well, every now and then I'll just take a couple of those because other people like them too, so they take them out of the jar. And then she goes, "Oh," and she starts digging around. Well, do you have any? So every now and then, when I reload the jar, I go take a couple of those and give them to her specifically. Right? What does that say? That says you know what I like, and you care about me enough that you're getting some to me without me having to go dig through the jar and dig through.
Yeah.
Just that little kind of service, right? There's another example, which is a negative example from UC Davis Police Department. I don't know if you remember about 2011, they had a macing incident.
Yes.
Some students. Okay. And so after that incident, one of the lieutenants who had been in our class, he was made acting chief. They bypassed, not only did they relieve the chief of duty, but they bypassed a captain who was basically doing the same thing as the chief. And they went to this lieutenant. And the lieutenant calls me up and he says, "Chris, I need help and I need it right now." So we went up to UC Davis for about 3 weeks to spend time with their entire police force. And in the sessions that we have with the police department, we're talking about people's motivation and Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that kind of stuff, talking about what people need and that needs help with motivation. And we started with the basic, the physiological needs, need for water. Oh my God. You'd have thought that I had strung people up. It was terrible. We spent 2.5 hours talking about water.
Huh.
And what it was these employees who worked at this police department weren't allowed to have water brought into the department. Drinking water
Huh.
like a regular bottled water, right? And when we got through all the discussion, and almost every single employee said exactly the same thing. They said, "Well, the chief said that the carbon footprint of the truck that delivered the water was hurting the plants outside, so that's why she didn't want to have water delivered to the department."
Wow.
So you think about that in terms of your employees. And what are you saying to your employees? You're saying
The plants are
those
more important
plants
than
are
you.
more important. Exactly. And so we started. So we turned that around. The chief, obviously, the brand new chief, he started. Not only did he have, water delivered, but he had lunch with his people. He started talking to them, listening to them, hearing about what they had to say, meeting their needs. And that's a lot of what the servant leadership stuff is, or being a servant leader is. You're meeting the needs of your people to make their life easier. One of the challenges I have now, I work in this office. It's got 160 some odd people. It's just got the regular kind of track fluorescent lighting overhead, and if you turned on all of it, it'd be so bright you couldn't really see. But so there's always this challenge of which bulbs are on and which bulbs are off because different people need different things for their vision. And you have people right next to each other in cubicles that you change a light bulb on this side, and now it affects the person over there. It's that much less light that they don't have, or that much more light that affects them, or it causes a glare on their computer screen. That kind of stuff is what a leader should be considering. What are these things that make people not enjoy being at work, or make it harder for them to do their job? So people who are successful with the servant leadership, they figure out that they meet people there, any of the Maslow's, physiological needs, safety and security needs, what is it? Love and belonging needs, and then self-esteem and some of the self-actualization.
Right.
If you go through all those, you determine what other people need, and you meet those needs for them. That's where you're getting this referent. They're doing this for me. Wow, this is somebody I need to pay attention to. That's how we are as people.
Right.
And so, and some of these behaviors that we talk about, I just give one. Intuitive, inspiring. Servant leader is one that everybody brought up. What about street smart? Do we want people to be street smart in law enforcement? Absolutely.
Sure.
You want people to be street smart. Do your politicians need to be street smart? Absolutely. But how about the average worker? Maybe, but do you need to be street smart when you're walking out into the parking garage? Tell them about, checking around, making sure you see people. You show that you care about the people that you're working with, and that's why it's all about people.
It's
You
important
show
to
that you care about the people.
Yeah, so important to
And
think
that's
about
where it
that.
comes from.
And, what are the things that they need to know, making sure that, you're removing roadblocks. What are the distractions? What are the
Right.
roadblocks? What are the things that are gonna get in the way of them really flourishing? And get those things out of the
Right.
way so they can you really get that full productivity, and they're fully engaged and loving what they do.
Exactly. Yeah. One example that happened yesterday, it was kind of funny. I For me to get anything done, I have to call GSA, the General Services
Sure.
Group, and then put in a work order, and then wait for 2 weeks until they assign the work order to somebody and whatever. Right. So I had this one gal, our operator. She sends a message to me, and she goes, "Hey, Chris, I think our clock has stopped." And these are just the AA batteries, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. And she goes, do you think you can have GSA come change the battery? And it's hung up high enough that I really wouldn't want her like climbing on a desk trying to get this thing, or and so I said, yeah, okay, we'll take care of the clock. So I went and got a AA battery, go down go down 3 floors, change the battery. She's talking on the phone. She didn't really realize that I was doing it. Change the battery, hang it back up. And what did that do? That saved GSA from having to come out. It saved having to look at a clock on the same time for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something like that. It took me a total of 5 minutes. And she sent me a message later on, and she goes, okay, well, maybe you can have them come out. I said, well, I already changed your battery. And then she goes, oh, okay, well, thanks. I appreciate it, but it's those kind of things that people know that you're willing to do that kind of stuff, to do that service for them. That's where you're going to get that return, that referent respect from people. And that's what a referent leader is. And it's my feeling that that's where servant leadership lives. I even wrote an article on it, which was posted on the National Leaderology website, about that's where I believe servant leadership lives. It's doing those services. What is the one thing that, does somebody need a different chair? I mean, does somebody just need to be told you did a good job?
Yeah.
What is it? It's that simple. And when we as leaders leaders and followers can stop thinking about ourselves, think about the people that we're asking to do a certain job. We're asking them to do a certain thing, and some of them aren't fun. I mean, I tell you, I'd rather go out and chase bad guys. I'd rather go out and, get in chases, do all that kind of stuff, rather than sit at a computer and look at minute orders from the court all day. That's
Yeah.
that to me is not fun, but other people love it.
Yeah. That's
So if
right.
that's what you love doing, If I could, you want me to bring you a coffee? I'll bring I'll come have some chocolate. I don't care. Whatever we need to do to help people, just that little bit that's where that service comes in. And that's where you do one little thing and maybe you get 10 times, 20 times that back. It's worth it.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
your understanding of followership has evolved over time. Share some insights maybe on how followership influences leadership and then how we as leaders can become better followers.
Okay. So, how followership influences leadership. The best example of this is, it, I don't want to ask personal questions, but like I have kids,
Yep.
right? And
I do as well.
and when yeah, and when your kids are young, they say, well, we're gonna. You say you're gonna do something. We're gonna go camping, or we're gonna do this or do that, and then your kids show you how they've learned how to do something that you may not have. Well, I have a 13-year-old granddaughter, super smart, and I was messing with my phone trying to figure something out. And she goes, "Oh, here, Papa, let me fix it for you." She takes it and
That's
she
great.
fixes it. That's like, okay, now show me how you did that. So that way, I don't have, there may be a day that my 13-year-old granddaughter is not around. You know, show me how I can do that, right? And I didn't know she knew that. I didn't. So we need to get to know our people. What does she know about computers? What does she know about cell phones,
Yeah.
whatever? And so we need to not just learn our people, but we need to let them surprise us also. Not tell them how to do something, tell them what you want done, and let them surprise you. And then maybe they found a better way to do it
Yeah.
than the way the company originally set it up. We need to listen to our people. And so being a follower and being a leader and making the environment such that we allow that people feel comfortable enough to come to us and say, hey, there's a better way to do this, or hey, why are we doing it this way? And let them explore some of the things. I mean, maybe some things, yes, there's an absolute, we have to do it that way because OSHA says if we don't, they're going to fine us millions of dollars. Who knows? But if there is something that maybe it works better for them, well, is it possible I could turn my desk around and do? Yeah, why not? You're the one that's got to do the work, right? Um, and be open to some of these ideas instead of this is my way of thinking about it. It has to be this way. So as a leader, we want to kind of open that channel up, and then as a follower, wouldn't we want our boss to do that for us?
Of course.
Right? And so that's where the followership can influence the leader, and the followership can, especially if we create that environment that allows for it, then we'll be moving forward with people. And do we want to completely change our organization? Probably not. Do we want to allow for some innovation? Yeah.
Of course.
Is
Yeah.
that innovation a good thing? Yeah. And then the second part of the question was about
How do we become better followers?
how do we become better followers? That's a good one. I'll give you an example. When I was at Modesto Police Department, I got passed over for captain 4 times. I was kind of I spoke my mind. I'll just say it that way. and so, but the last time it was between me and this other guy. His name was Mike, and so it comes down to it. And I knew that he was going to get picked. I mean, I still tried for it. I still was really interested in the position, whatever. But I told myself I am not going to let yet another, because the first 2 times it kind of hurt, you get let down, etc. So I said, I'm not going to, if I get turned down or whatever, I'm not going to let that bother me. I'm still going to come in. Wow. So the announcement comes out. Mike gets selected. He's the new captain in investigations. I was working in traffic. And he calls me up that night and he says, "Hey, Chris, I hope you're doing okay. But what I want to do is I want you to come work with me, not for me, with me." I said, "Okay, I can do that." So the next day I come in, or it was over the weekend, the next day on the Monday, I come in, I'm wearing a suit and I came in whistling. How many upset, mad, angry people do you know whistle?
Right.
Nobody, right? If somebody's whistling, they're in a good mood. I came in specifically whistling so that people would think I was in a good mood. They were all expecting me to be angry and this and that. And I came in and I went in, had a meeting with Mike, and we sat down and kind of hash out who's going to handle what duties, that kind of stuff. And I told him, I said, Mike, I'm disappointed that I didn't get promoted, but I want you to know that doesn't mean I'm not going to be a good follower. I will help you whatever you need. He says, I really appreciate that. I didn't think that you would, be negative or whatever, but I really appreciate that. So sometimes it's this conscious effort to override what you're feeling and say, I'm going to do the right thing for the right reasons. And then 2 weeks later, he calls me into the office. He goes, "Chris," he goes, "I don't know." So I think I may have made a mistake. I go, "What do you mean made a mistake?" He goes, "Well, I've got, a new wife. I got a new baby on the way. I got all this stuff going on. And now this new job, I think I might have made it." I said, "Mike, it's your job now. I've already decided that, I'm going to start my business plan in about 8 months. So this was my last shot, before I decided I want to go do something else." And I said, I will help you. I will do whatever I need to. I'll run the place if you need me to. You take care of what you need to take care of, but this is your job. So he did, and he did very well. And I left and I became a consultant and started my own business. About a year and a half later, he was selected as a chief of police for a nearby town. And the first thing he did was he called me to come and do some training for him
That's awesome.
in leadership. So it's that kind of thing that you sometimes have to force yourself to override your feelings. You sometimes have to say, you know what? It's not about position. It's not about my ego. I just need to do what I'm supposed to do. And that's where it comes down to behavior again. It's getting rid of the position, getting rid of the ego.
That's great. Well, where can people learn more about you online and get a copy of the book Liminal Space?
So for me, they can learn more at www.cmfleadership.com. And right on the front of that web page, you'll see the book there, and you click on that, it'll take you to Amazon. It's there. You can get the audiobook. The Kindle book, or the paperback right off of Amazon.
Excellent.
Yep.
I'll make sure and link both of those in the show notes.
Thanks again, Chris, for coming on the show and sharing your insights and resources. Again, the book is called Liminal Space, Reshaping Leadership and Followership. You can learn more about Chris at cmfleadership.com. And of course, follow him on social. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to check us out on YouTube as well. Shorts, full episodes, training, outtakes, all sorts of great things. Thought leaders share. So share this episode with someone who didn't make it to SaaStr this year. Everyone who shares this week gets a SaaStr Skyrocket Slingshot. It launches your SaaS ideas into the stratosphere, literally. Sling your next big pitch, watch it fly over the competition, powered by pure innovation and maybe a little rubber band magic. Join us next Tuesday, where our founder is Dave Dittenberg, founder and CEO of BYOD. 30-year restaurant veteran who is leveraging AI and SaaS to solve real-time operational challenges and revolutionize the restaurant industry. And next week on our SaaS Fuel Expert Series, we have John McDonald. John is founder of The Good, a digital journey optimization firm that's achieved results for the largest online brands. He knows how to get website visitors to take action. So I will see you next time. I hope to see you right here at SaaStr, and as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/saasfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.